Yes, 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 yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, my name is Kwame Gonza. This is Africa Reimagined. Once again, we are here to deliberate on the Africa Liberation Day. It is an important day as far as Pan-Africanism is concerned when you are talking about people who love Africa. So it is a day that is remembered uh, in order for us uh, to keep our mind and minds fresh about the happenings or the misfortunes that have happened to the African people in the past. But today, what we want to do is that not only to reflect on the past, but we want to reflect also on the present and then the future. In reflecting on the past, the present, and the future, we will look at the challenges has the African Union and the Organization of African Unity, who is the mother of the African Union, been able to achieve the objectives for which it was created as an organization, and then the expectations, okay, the expectations, because Africans have a lot of expectations in this organization, and they expect it to do much. Okay, so but what have been the challenges that this organization has not been able to achieve its objectives for which it was created? Okay, because from my understanding, and you agree with me, it is the feeling of many Africans around the world, not only on the continent but around the world, and all people of African descent. The feeling is that the African Union is punching below its weight. Okay, it has so much potential, it has so much ability, so much ability, but it has not been able to go ahead and punch to that extent. Okay, it has not been able to to deliver, okay, punch up to its weight. In fact, you will go ahead and say that all the African continent is punching below its weight when you are talking about the intellectual capacity of the continent, the availability of materials which we have on the continent, and all these resources that we have on the continent. We have not been able to use those materials for the good of the continent, for us to prosper and prosper all the African people around the continent. So we want to look at the challenges. What have been the challenges? I see you, my brother or sister, in the chat. If you feel that you want to join me so that we can have this discussion about the African Union and its achievements, I've just put the link in the chat. Just join me on StreamYard so that we can have this discussion about the African Liberation Day. Have we been able to achieve, the purpose of our liberation from colonialism, 60 years ago? Okay, we are commemorating more than 64 years of the African Union, or you can call it the Organization of African Unity. But we want to reflect, have we been able really to achieve the objectives for the formation? Because the founding fathers, like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who is the utmost, I consider him the utmost, or the upmost or utmost authority on Pan-Africanism and African problems on the continent, because of the way Nkrumah was able to analyze the problems. He was able to understand. This is what actually distinguishes Dr. Kwame Nkrumah from the rest of the Africans, is that he was able to analyze Africa and its problems. Okay, he was able to understand the makeup of society, how society is made up, and then in this understanding of how society is made up, Nkrumah was able to look at the problems and then look at the future and then proffer solutions to these problems that are that are affecting the African continent and the African people. So I think that the African Union, Organization of African Unity, to a very large extent, has not been able to achieve the objectives for which it was created, because the founding fathers, like I said, wanted to see a solid union, a solid government, hinged on certain, certain aspects which which were supposed to be core to the function, to the functioning of the Union of African States. And some of those aspects, you can talk of a single military for the whole continent. You can talk of a single market for the whole continent. You can talk of a single citizenry, single citizenship for the whole continent. You can talk of a single foreign policy for the continent. These were some of the things which were the core principles, were the core aspects for the formation of the African Union, or the Organization of African Unity. Now, the Organization of African Unity, according to those who took it up to 2002, when it was transformed into the organization, when it was transformed into the African Union, they said that the Organization of African Unity, or the OAU, had achieved its objective of liberating the continent from colonialism. That is what they say themselves, that the purpose of the OAU was to liberate the continent. So they said it had now finished liberating the continent, even though we still have Western Sahara being dominated by Morocco. They said that it had achieved its objective. So it is high time now the organization be transformed. And so it was reformed, and then under the leadership of President Muammar Gaddafi, may he so rest in peace, the previous president, the late president of Libya, President Muammar Gaddafi. Under his leadership, the OAU was able to be transformed into the African Union. Okay, so the African Union was supposed to accelerate the process of integrating Africa politically, majorly, and that is what President Muammar Gaddafi focused on very much. You remember the SAT declaration that during the meeting which was held in SAT in Libya, he argued and pushed his fellow leaders, who were the African leaders that time, to be able to integrate Africa and form a single military, to which they were hesitant. Of course, it was the same spirit which was driving them, like what you see, the spirit which drove the African leaders in 1963, that they were hesitant when Nkrumah was giving them this proposal that we should unify our continent into a single force and make a government that will take care of the needs of the African people, that would be able to protect the African people from Western aggression, from external aggression, and then from exploitation. Okay, now we see that the Western world has gone on to get a lifeline because of this division that has continued on in the African continent, or in the African Union. France has gone in there to be able to hijack the African Union and advance its objectives. You can see that even when we are talking about the CAF, the Confederation of African Football, it is being sponsored even up to today by Total, which is Total Energy, which was before Total of France. It is the one sponsoring the African Union, Confederation of African Football. So it is unfortunate that France has been able to get its way into the African Union to advance its objectives of continuous, continued and continuous exploitation of Africa. When you're talking about Africa's uranium, when you're talking about Africa's gold, when you're talking about Africa's labor, a time ago we saw that all the African, I mean, the French team, football team, is filled with Africans. So the exploitation has not only stopped at resources, okay? It has not only stopped at resources, but it has gone as far as even exploiting the human resources of Africa. So that is, France, when you're talking about its engagement and its involvement in the African Union. So it has been able to hijack the African Union. So why has it been able to hijack the African Union? It's because of the divisions that still exist within the African Union, within the African continent. So these divisions, Nkrumah saw that the only way for us to be able to overcome this division is for a union. We have to fight for a union. And the CIA, of course, was against Nkrumah, and they fought very much against him, and they infiltrated the leaders that time in 1963. And lo and behold, they were able to defeat Nkrumah, but they did not defeat him entirely, because the vision has continued to drive the continent. The vision of a unified Africa has continued to drive the continent. And that is the vision on which we, the young generation who were born, before Nkrumah, we were born before Nkrumah ourselves, because we understand that Nkrumah was, buried in 1972 when he died. He died in 1972. But some of us, we are born way, after 1972. But his vision, because it is so alive, it has a lot of life. Even we, the young generation, have been able to come up and find this vision and be able to, to push it forward. My brother or sister who is in the, watching, I've put a link, a StreamYard link into, the chat. Yeah, you can join me. You can click and join me if you want to, join the discussion. We are discussing Africa Liberation Day, 64 years on, and has Africa been able to achieve the objectives, for which the Organization of African Unity and consequently African Union was formed? What are the challenges? Okay, what are the challenges, and then what are the opportunities? So we are looking at the challenges. Since 1619, when the fastest, Africans were taken from the continent into Americas to start the building, of the Western world, because these people were used as labor. These Africans were used as labor. And what have been the challenges, since that time, and what are the opportunities? Because we understand that in the year 1805, Haiti was able to fight its way and open the door for Africans to liberate themselves. So when Haiti started this war, it fought, and there was new light that was brought forth, because the Africans had been dominated for a very long time, for almost more than 300 years. But Africans again were able to show that they have the ability to liberate themselves, and Haiti was the one which showed that mettle. Haiti is the one which showed that ability. Haiti is the one which opened that door to show the world that Africans can liberate themselves. That Africans are full human beings, and they can fight their way into liberation. And they did that in 1805. But we did not stop there. The doors for liberation, they were opened by Haiti in 1805. They went ahead, Africans, to continue to fight on that. In 1945, Africans convened in Manchester under the leadership of people like Nkrumah, who was the secretary, one of the organizing secretary, W.E.B. Du Bois, Amy Ashwood Garvey. All these people, they came together, and then they started struggling. They started having a conversation. Okay, this was Africa's, intellectuals that time, that they came together and started deliberating and thinking and saying that our continent is in a situation that is undesirable. So we need to do something. And lo and behold, something was done, because from 1945, when the Manchester Conference was held, it took only a period of around 12 years, 12 to 13 years, 1945 up to 1957. That's a period of 12 years, and Nkrumah was able to achieve independence. When he came back from that conversation which they had, he was able to come back to the Gold Coast and mobilize the people and achieve independence. This opened the doors wide for African liberation, okay, during that time. And it was just, all this was building on the efforts of what Haiti had started. because Haiti is the one who opened the doors. So when Nkrumah also achieved in 1957 the liberation for the Gold Coast and turned it into Ghana, then the gate was also widely open, and many African countries were able to achieve independence later on. Yeah, so those are the opportunities. There were opportunities around that period. But when we look at today also, where are the African intellectuals? Yes, we have seen a lot of Pan-Africanists talking about the need for us to liberate ourselves from neocolonialism. But what can we do, to liberate ourselves? These are the discussions I think that we need to start having. And once we have started having these discussions, I think the solution will come forth. The solution, once we start, sitting down and dialoguing, then the solution will come forth, like how our ancestors sat in 1945 in Manchester. When they sat down, the moment they sat down and they started deliberating on the problem, lo and behold, the solution was able to come forth. And I believe that if we sit down as Africans also today and we start deliberating, in this starting 2020 up to the period in which we are, there is certain things that are going on in the world. If we sit down seriously as Africans and we start deliberating, the solution, we will come to the solution. We have to put all options on the table. Our ancestors did not limit their solutions to say that the only way for us to achieve independence is through maybe non-violent means. But they put all options on the table, and they say if it needs for us to be violent, and violent means taking up arms for us to achieve independence, they did it. If you look at what happened in Guinea Conakry, you can talk of our prominent psychologists like Frantz Fanon. He said that because Frantz Fanon spent time studying the psychology of the colonialists, and then the psychology also of the colonized, to understand what goes on in these people's minds, what drives these people in colonizing other people. So he came to the conclusion, Frantz Fanon came to the conclusion that we need to be realistic when we are, struggling against the colonialists and the oppressors. We need to have all options on the table. Where non-violence is needed, we need to act non-violently. Where violence is needed, we need to take up arms, because the colonialists also are using violence. We can talk of places like Ukraine, for example. We have seen violence in Ukraine. Russia had to come to the understanding that they have to engage militarily for them to be able to stop the colonialists, and now they're coming all the way to the doors of Russia, in the east, in the western, in the eastern part of Russia, because Russia has been crying for a very long time that they should not extend, to the eastward, but they have been extending. So this is the psychology which Frantz Fanon is talking about, that if you want to respond non-violently all the time, when you are supposed to respond militarily also, you are supposed to be militant, because these people, they don't only understand the language of non-violence, even though to a certain level they do. Then you will fall back, okay? You open yourself up for continued colonization. You have to be strong, okay? We have to be strong. So we have, that is what I say, that we have to put out all options on the table. We have to put all solutions on the table and say, what do we need now to liberate ourselves? And that is where I see Africa is today, that we need to sit down as Africans and have a dialogue and agree that what is supposed to be done is not only a single solution, but we have to put all options on the table. Has the African Union indeed been able to achieve for us, our aspirations, our hopes and aspirations as Africans? And the answer to that, all of us, we know that it has not been able to achieve the expectations. And now, who is supposed to hold it accountable for not achieving that? You can see that I have the African Union flag here in my house. I do believe that as Africans, this African Union flag belongs to us. The Marcus Garvey flag belongs to us. All these flags, the African diaspora flags, all of them belong to us. So we have a right to use them. The African Union, as an organization, which I have a flag here, I believe that belongs to us as a people. So it is up to us, the youth, to take back that organization from the colonialists who have hijacked it, because it is supposed to function. It has now been turned into an NGO that is not functioning to the benefit, that is not responding to the hopes and aspirations of the African people. And that is protecting our resources on the continent, protecting us as a people that, foreigners, they just enter in the continent, they kill people as they want, like we have seen France killing people in the Sahel. France has killed a lot of people in Sahel. Up to 3,000 people have been killed by the French military in the Sahel, but no one holds it accountable. So the only, organization, the only place, the only body that is supposed to hold France accountable, I can confidently say, is African Union. Okay, and we can only do that if we take it back as the young people. And we have started, me, myself, and my organization, and the organizations I'm associated with, we have started on this journey of taking back the African Union and then liberating our continent, because we understand that the African Union belongs to us, the African continent belongs to us. So we have to be in a position whereby we should protect our continent. The foreigners, they should not just come to our continent, because this continent belongs to people, belongs to us. They have been able to come in and do whatever they want, kill people and go out as they want. They have been able to come up inside the continent, set up economic systems like we have had, that France is holding, foreign reserves for more than 13 countries, 14 countries, African countries, okay, in West Africa. So how can a country like France come in, if the African Union is really functioning and is doing its job? How can France come into the continent and continue to enslave the other African countries? It is ridiculous. Continue to colonize, continue to set up economic zones into the African continent without the knowledge of the African Union, without the understanding of the African Union, without seeking permission, okay, seeking permission from the African Union. And these are the anomalies. These are the anomalies as Africans, I believe that we have to correct. We are going to correct this, okay? I believe that we have the capability as Africans to correct these mistakes. We, the young generation, we have that capability. I'm very optimistic. I know a lot of people have been, skeptic about this situation, about what is going on in our continent. But myself, as a young person, and all the other people, the other young people who I'm part of, I believe that we have the capacity, we have the resources, okay, we have the ability to be able to take back this our continent and protect it, protect it from all aggression. So France, the United States, all of them, all the European countries, they have no right to come to the African continent and bring military bases on the African continent without the knowledge of the African Union. Permission is supposed to be, gotten from the African Union. They're supposed to seek permission from the African Union and all the African people. Not only the African Union, but also the regional bodies on the continent. Okay, the regional bodies on the continent. But they have not done this in the past. They have really not done this in the past. So the African Union, we have to strengthen it to the point that it is able to take care of the security needs of the continent, the economic needs of the continent, okay, the foreign affairs, needs of the continent. And we have to be realistic. We have to be realistic in our approach. And we have to make the foreigners also understand that this continent belongs to us. There is people to whom this continent belongs to. So it is a house. Our continent is a house for us. Our continent is a house for us as Africans and the African diaspora. So the foreigners cannot just come in and be entering our house without our knowledge, without our understanding. Okay, Camp Lamois as a military base in Djibouti was established without the knowledge, without the agreement of all the other African countries. And this is dangerous. These military bases have a consequence for all African countries. Camp Lamois is where the airplanes, the fighter jets that bombed Libya, they came from. They were based in Camp Lamois in Djibouti. That's where they came from, and they bombed Libya. So the African Union has to be up to speed with these events. It has to respond quickly to these events. So we are in that position, I believe, where we are able to hold the African Union accountable to these events that are happening around the continent. And we can only do it if we push forward. There is a certain activities which we have engaged in so far in order to put the African Union on fire, to put its feet under fire, so that they will be able to understand that we as African people, our hopes and aspirations have not been fulfilled. We are not satisfied with the functioning of the African Union. We are not satisfied with how it has continued to act recklessly, negligently, in a lazy manner. I can say that it has been acting lazily, that it does not care. How can the United States be discussing about establishing AFRICOM as a military base, in Zambia? They want to establish AFRICOM in Zambia without the knowledge of the African Union, without the protest of the African Union. We have to protest about this. Okay, the United States has no right to come into the continent and establish military bases, even though the various African countries may give it permission, like the government in Zimbabwe may give it permission, or the government in Botswana may give it permission, or the government in Ghana, where another United States military base is, may give it permission. But the other African countries have to protest against this. They have to rise up and say, this is dangerous to all of us. It is unacceptable that you are entering military pacts, with a foreigner, and these military bases which you are putting in your country, they have an effect on us. So we are protesting against this. So it is only right for the African Union to come in and also protest. Okay, so, but France, because it has been able to penetrate through the African Union by claiming that they are sponsoring the Confederation of African Football, so they use this as a bait. They use this as a carrot to be able to convince the African Union that they are doing some work on the continent and continue to exploit the African continent. And then what are the opportunities, if I may say? What are the opportunities? We have seen the challenges, but what are the opportunities? The opportunities are there. You can see that I pointed out that in 1805, our ancestors were able to achieve independence. But there is, when you look at that period in 1805, when Haiti achieved its independence, there were certain events. If you look at history critically, there were certain events that were surrounding that period. That in that period, there was a war, a contestation between France and England for supremacy, for the dominance of the world. And this dominance led into a conflict where France and England, they were fighting against each other. And if you come also to 1945, this is always about contest for power, the struggle for power, when people want to dominate the world. So they are fighting against each other in order to dominate the world. So when you come to 1945 also, you see events, the same events, okay, which occurred in 1805, that there was also a contest in 1945, between these guys that they are contesting for power. You see that the war, which they carried out against Germany, Nazi Germany, it was the contest for power, the struggle for power, okay, because Germany was trying to dominate Europe, and take over even the colonies in Africa, all the European colonies in Africa, and dominate them. So, and these guys, they were saying they will not agree. So our people have always seen an opportunity. So that is what I spoke about when I said, what are the opportunities? Our people have always seen that there is an opportunity for us to start struggling. Okay, when I was studying history, I saw that even today, starting the year 2020, if you examine history, if you look at people like Ray Dalio, for example, Ray Dalio is an investor in the United States who has the biggest hedge fund in the United States, and I think around the world. Ray Dalio's hedge fund is more than, I think, $160 billion, and he himself his wealth is up to around, his net worth is up to around $20 billion. Ray Dalio, he came up with the understanding that for him to invest he has to look at history for the last 600 years. Okay, so I came about him and his understanding a few years ago in 2020, when I came across him, and he was speaking on YouTube and Yahoo Finance, and he was talking about how he invests, that he studies empires, how they rise and fall. And in this rise and fall of empires, he studies their history, their financial models, their financial muscle, for him to be able to understand where the economic wind is blowing, and that is where he puts his money. And he has been investing a lot in China. So Red Dalio wrote even a book on it called Understanding the Principles of Understanding the Changing World Order. Okay, so when I came up to this history which he wrote, and his understanding and his school of thought, and how he invested by looking at history, this was a confirmation actually of my research which I had done myself. I had already done research on our history as Africans for the last 600 years to understand how we have been liberating ourselves as Africans. And from what I saw that events in 2020, because they said that history repeats itself. History keeps repeating itself. I saw that the events in 2020, they are very similar to what happened to our ancestors in 1945, and then what happened in when you look at 1791, because that is the time when the struggles started. So in 1791, the Haitians started struggling, and they spent about 13 years in the struggle up to 1805 when they achieved the independence. And when you come to 1945 also, 1945, that is when they came together and they started the struggle. They started struggling against this colonialism. And after 12 years, 1957, they achieved independence. So when I looked at the events, they looked very similar for me. For me, those events looked very similar to the extent that I think that 2020, the year 2020 is very instrumental to our liberation as Africans. It's very, very instrumental to our liberation as Africans. So what am I saying? I'm saying that the events surrounding 2020, they have gone on to be confirmed actually by the, by the continuous, now you see that the war that is going on now with Russia, they are contesting, the Western world is contesting with Russia. So it is a confirmation of all these events. It is a confirmation that Africa there is something going on around the world, and Africa is supposed to jump on. Africa is supposed to jump in and start looking at these things, and especially the Pan-Africanists, because I've always said that Pan-Africanists, the burden of liberating Africans all over the world has always fallen on the shoulders of Africans. And it is not different today. It is not different today that burden is still supposed to be carried by the Africans. I want to welcome you and I want to appreciate you guys who are watching. I'll put a link in the chat. If you want to join the discussion, I'm open to the discussion. Come in, just click the link and join in, and let us have a discussion. We are discussing African Liberation Day. This is African Liberation Day special. So we are discussing liberation. What are the challenges and opportunities that are existing on the African continent? So you can log in by clicking on that StreamYard link, and let us have these discussions. Let us have the discussions and see where we are today. What are the opportunities that exist for Africa as Africans for us to be able to liberate ourselves? Like I said, the events in 2020, they are reminiscent of what happened in 1945 and 1791 to 1805. The events that happened in 2020, starting from 2020 when coronavirus started hitting, they are reminiscent of the events that happened between 1945 and 1957 when Nkrumah struggled for independence. And they are reminiscent again, with the events that happened in 1791 up to 1805 when Toussaint Louverture and General Dessalines in Haiti were able to achieve the independence. And I said also that the burden for liberating our continent, Africa, has always fallen on the shoulders of Pan-Africanists. the people who understand world events, the people who understand that Africa is one, the people who understand that the people in Africa, okay, the individuals in Africa are not different from the Africans around the world. These people, the burden for liberating our continent has always fallen on them, and that is us. That is us, the Pan-Africanists. So we need to come together and start having these dialogues. How can we liberate our continent from neocolonialism? Okay, Africa is the last frontier. Africa is the last frontier, as you saw on my thumbnail, which I put on the video. When Nkrumah is talking about that Africa could become, okay, united Africa could become the most powerful force in the world. Okay, and we can also, and he said that it is also clear that we should find an African solution to our problems as Africans. Okay, so it is easier for the proverbial camel to pass through the, the needle's eye and hump and all, than for colonial, countries to give, advice that is sound to the liberated territories. These are the words of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So what are we supposed to do? We have seen the events that are similar, like we have said. The war in Ukraine, like I said, is not an accident. The events that are happening today, they are very reminiscent with the events in 1945 and the events in 1791. So what does this say about the times we are living in? It has a lot to say. It tells us that we should get up and start acting in a certain way as Africans. And that certain way is supposed to be the way for the liberation of our continent. And we have started. So if you have not started there where you are sitting, you have not started having these discussions, your consciousness has not been lifted to that level of understanding that Africa is supposed to be liberated up to now because of the events that are going on around the world. It is high time you start having these conversations. It is high time you start having these discussions with your family, with your neighbors, with your colleagues, that where does Africa fit in these times we are living in? Okay, we have started, like I said. I want to thank you, you people who are watching me. You can, put comments in the chat. I said that you can join me via StreamYard. I'll put the link in StreamYard in the chat here. So you can join me and then we can have this discussion. I've already posted the link twice over there. You can just click it and then let's have the discussion. Let us have this discussion and keep it going. So we are discussing what are the opportunities, what are the challenges. We have seen the challenges, and a lot of us know the challenges actually all over the African continent and the African world. But what are the opportunities now? Today, I wanted to focus on the opportunities. And like I said, there is events that are going on today. There is occurrences that are going on today. And those occurrences, those occurrences, they fall in exactly in what we are supposed to be doing as Africans, Pan-Africans especially. There is challenges, and especially when people look at the existing neo-colonial structure, the existing neo-colonial governments, you see that a lot of people say that it is a big challenge. How can we deal with it? How can we deal with the militaries all over the continent that are brutalizing the people? You can talk of places like Uganda, for example. There is brutalization that went on, some time back, where Museveni unleashed the military, to be able to brutalize the people. And we have seen this brutality in South Africa, the Marikana massacre, which happened in South Africa. We have seen this brutality also happening in places like Ghana and Cameroon. We have seen it in Ivory Coast. So how do we deal with all these challenges? And I submit to you that these challenges are surmountable. Each generation of liberators of our people, of all our continent, had challenges to surmount. And these are challenges which also we have to surmount. And we have to agree that we have the ability to overcome these challenges. Many people, in the past have overcome these challenges. When you look at, like I said, our ancestors who overcame, colonialism, they had to come up against Britain, which was the most powerful military at that time. But how were they able to defeat it? And our ancestors who defeated slavery, they were able to come up against France and Britain and Spain altogether. Remember, Haiti defeated France, both France, Britain, and Spain all together. Okay, it was able to defeat them. But how were they able to defeat them? Yet they did not have an expertise in military. So even today, we have to agree as Africans that there is these challenges, okay, of the neo-colonial governments, which are, littered all over the African continent. There is those neo-colonial governments, but there is also some progressive governments which we can work with on the continent. I strongly agree that there is some progressive governments on the African continent which we can, collaborate with and work with. But have we, as Africans, been able to reach out to these progressive governments? That is a question, which we need to ask ourselves. Have we sat down as Africans together and agreed to an alternative to neoliberalism as a system? Have we agreed on an alternative, economic system? Have we agreed on an alternative political system as Africans? If we have not answered these questions, then there's no way we can say that we have been defeated as a people. We have not been defeated. We have not been defeated. So I'm submitting that we have the capability, we have the ability to be able to fight this war. We have the ability to be able to overcome this challenge. Okay, so we have already started the struggle, and we have come up with some petitions, like I said, to be able to put the feet of the African Union on fire for it to respond to the Africans. We have some petitions. Those petitions, I'll be putting them in the chat, and I'll be putting them in the comment section on this video. If you want, you can go out there. Actually, it is not a matter of wanting, but it is imperative that we work together. So let us go out there, sign these petitions. The petitions which I'm talking about, we have come up with the petitions that we want to, to put pressure on the African Union so that the African Union can stop the wars on the continent. Okay, in this, we are using these tools as a tool, as tools for mobilization of the African people. So there are three petitions which we have come up with. One, we are talking about unifying the African continent. We are demanding for a united African state, okay, in this year 2020. Second petition is that we are demanding for the stoppage of all the wars in the African continent. And in this, we are calling for the formation of a single African military with 1 million military people, okay, employed in it from all the African countries. And the third petition, we are calling for the issuance of a single passport and a single money for all African people. So all these petitions, if I may say, if I may give you a secret, they have all been endorsed by the PLO Lumumba Foundation. They have been endorsed by Pan-African Daily TV, Dr. Susan. They have been endorsed by Dr. Edmund Folfak, who is a renowned oncologist at, in the United States, who is a doctor for cancer, is a very prominent. He has endorsed all these petitions, and these petitions, I'll put them in the chat, and I'll also put the petitions in the comment section so that you can be able to, click them and go out there and sign them. So I'll put those petitions in there. So we are moving forward. Like I said, Pan-African Daily TV is in support of these petitions. PLO Lumumba Foundation is in support of these petitions. And recently, we also had another webinar whereby the Honorable Joshua Maponga also agreed to sign these petitions and back them. So there are three very important petitions. Like I said, we don't want to be like people who are dormant, that we are not doing anything. So if I put these petitions, try also and circulate them, because we are trying to act in a certain way. Like I said, there is certain events that are going on today. The events that are going on today are reminiscent of what happened in 1945 and 1791, because like I said, history repeats itself. And when it repeats itself and we understand this as Pan-Africans, then we should start acting in a certain way. And that certain way, as Pan-Africanists, it should be the way of liberating our continent. It should be the way of liberating our people. And I'm submitting that the how of how we are going to liberate our continent, that is not an issue. That is not an issue. We just have to first understand. We just have to first understand that as a people, we have the capability to do this. Regardless, even though we appreciate the challenges ahead, we have the capability to do this. So I want to thank you, my brothers and sisters who have been watching in the chat. You know, I appreciate you very much. I request you to like, you know, the video, share it. I want to appreciate you for being on for the last 45 minutes. It is a great honor having you, and I ask you to come again. Click on and watch all the other videos. I've published a lot of videos on the channel, and all of them, they're about analyzing the situation for us as Africans. I've analyzed from an African perspective the situation in Ukraine. That video, you can click in there. Subscribe if you are not subscribed to the channel. The subscription button is down here, and also share the channel. But there is a lot of videos which we have published. We have published a video on Pan-Africans, you know, Pan-Africanism versus tribalism. It is there. We have analyzed the situation in Ukraine from an African perspective, and we want to look at this. What is it about? What is the situation in Ukraine about really? Is it really about freedom for Ukraine, or is about colonizing the rest of the world, continuing to colonize the rest of the world? Yeah, so we have submitted our analysis on this YouTube channel called Africa Reimagined. Share it, go out there and examine and understand. I also recently published another video where we are analyzing is this the third industrial revolution, or this is the fourth industrial revolution? And from that understanding, where does Africa fit in? So all these, they concern us as Africans. The events going on around the world, they concern us as Africans. So we have to understand that we are part of the world. We are Africans, but we are part of the world. And so we are supposed to do our thing on the side as Africans, but we are supposed also to pay attention to the world and what is going on around the world. I want to thank you very much, all of you who have been patient with me and have been watching all the way when we started. It is a great honor having you once again. This is Africa Reimagined, where we talk technology, where we talk politics, where we talk anything concerning Africa. I want to thank you. God bless you. Africa must unite. Africa must unite. Africa must unite. Thank you.